mother of the Pontus. After having viewed the Pontus, Darius sailed back to the bridge, whose architect was Mandocles of Samos. And when he had viewed the Bosporus also, he set up 2 pillars of white marble by it, engraving on the one in Assyrian and on the other in Greek characters the names of all the nations that were in his army, all the nations subject to him. The full census of these, over and above the fleet, was 700,000 men, including horsemen, and the number of ships assembled was 600. These pillars were afterwards carried by the Byzantines into their city, and there used to build the altar of Othosian Artemis, except for one column covered with Assyrian writing that was left beside the temple of Dionysus at Byzantium. Now, if my reckoning is correct, the place where King Darius bridged the Bosporus was midway between Byzantium and the temple at the entrance of the sea. After this, being pleased with his bridge of boats, Darius made a gift of 10 of everything to Mandocles the Samian, the architect of it. Mandocles took the first fruits of these, and had a picture made with them, showing the whole bridge of the Bosporus, and Darius sitting aloft on his throne and his army crossing. He set this up in the temple of Hera, with the inscription, "After bridging the Bosporus that teems with fish, Mandocles dedicated a memorial of the floating bridge to Hera, having won a crown for himself and fame for the Samians, doing the will of King Darius." This memorialized the builder of the bridge. Darius, after rewarding Mandocles, crossed over to Europe. He had told the Ionians to sail into the Pontus as far as the Ister river, and when they got to the Ister, to wait there for him, bridging the river meanwhile, for the fleet was led by Ionians and Aeolians and men of the Hellespont. So the fleet passed between the dark rocks and sailed straight for the Ister, and, after a 2 days' voyage up the river from the sea, set about bridging the narrow channel of the river where its various mouths separate. But Darius, passing over the Bosporus on the floating bridge of ships, journeyed through Thrace to the sources of the Tiaris river, where he camped for 3 days. The Tiaris is said by those living on it to be the best river of all for purposes of healing, especially for healing mange in men and horses. Its springs are 38 in number, some cold and some hot, all flowing from the same rock. There are 2 roads to the place, one from the town of Heraeum near Perinthus, one from Apollonia on the Euxine Sea. Each is a 2 days' journey. This Tiaris is a tributary of the Contadesdus river, and that of the Agrianes, and that of the Hebrus, which empties into the sea near the city of Aenus. Having come to this river and camped there, then Darius was pleased with the sight of it, and set up yet another pillar there, cut with this inscription: "From the headwaters of the river Tiaris flows the best and finest water of all, and to them came, leading an army against the Scythians, the best and finest man of all, Darius son of Hystaspes, king of Persia and all the continent." Such was the inscription. From there Darius set out and came to another river called Artescus, which flows through the country of the Odrysae, and having reached this river, he pointed out a spot to the army, and told every man to lay 1 stone as he passed in this spot that he pointed out. After his army did this, he led it away, leaving behind there great piles of stones. But before he came to the Ister, he first took the Getae, who pretended to be immortal. The Thracians of Salmydessus and of the country above the towns of Apollonia and Messambria, who are called Kermianae and Nipsae, surrendered without a fight to Darius. But the Getae resisted stubbornly, and were enslaved at once, the bravest and most just Thracians of all. Their belief in their immortality is as follows: they believe that they do not die, but that one who perishes go to the deity Salmoxis, or Gebelesis, as some of them call him. Once every 5 years they choose one of their people by lot, and send him as a messenger to Salmoxis, with instructions to report their needs. And this is how they send him. 3 lances are held by designated men. Others seize the messenger to Salmoxis by his hands and feet, and swing and toss him up on the spear points. If he is killed by the toss, they believe that the god regards them with favour. but if he is not killed, they blame the messenger himself, considering him a bad man, and send another messenger in place of him. It is while the man still lives that they give him the message. Furthermore, when there is thunder and lightning, these same Thracians shoot arrows skyward as a threat to the god, believing in no other god but their own. I understand from the Greeks who live behind the Hellespont and Pontus, that this Salmoxis was a man who was once a slave in Samos, his master being Pythagoras, son of Mnesarchus. Then, after being freed and gaining great wealth, he returned to his own country. Now the Thracians were a poor and backward people, but this Salmoxis knew Ionian ways, and a more advanced way of life than the Thracian, for he had consorted with Greeks, and moreover with one of the greatest Greek teachers, Pythagoras. Therefore he made a hall, where he entertained and fed the leaders among his countrymen, and taught them that neither he nor his guests nor any of their descendants would ever die, but that they would all go to a place where they would live for ever and have all good things. While he was doing as I have said, and teaching this doctrine, he was meanwhile making an underground chamber. When this was finished, he vanished from the sight of the Thracians, and went down into the underground chamber, where he lived for 3 years, while the Thracians wished him back and mourned him for dead. Then in the 4th year he appeared to the Thracians, and thus they came to believe what Salmoxis had told them. Such is the Greek story about him. Now I neither disbelieve nor entirely believe the tale about Salmoxis and his underground chamber, but I think that he lived many years before Pythagoras. And as to whether there was a man called Salmoxis, or this is some deity native to the Getae, let the question be dismissed. Such were the ways of the Getae, who were subdued by the Persians and followed their army. When Darius and the land army with him had come to the Ister, and all had crossed, he had the Ionians break the bridge and follow him in his march across the mainland, together with the men of the fleet. So the Ionians were preparing to break the bridge and do Darius's bidding, but Cores, son of Erxander, the general of the Mytileneans, after first asking if Darius were willing to listen to advice from one who wanted to give it, said, "Since, O king, you are about to march against a country where you will not find tilled lands or inhabited cities, let this bridge stay where it is, leaving those who made it to guard it. Thus, if we find the Scythians and do what we want, we have a safe way of return, and even if we do not find them, at least our way back is safe. For my fear has never been that we shall be overcome by the Scythians in the field, but rather that we may not be able to find them, and so go astray to our harm. Now it may perhaps be said that I say this for my own sake, because I want to remain behind. But it is not so. I only declare publicly the opinion that I think best for you, and I will follow you, and do not want to be left here." Darius was very pleased with this advice, and he answered Cores thus: "My friend from Lesbos, do not fail to show yourself to me when I return to my house safe, so that I may make you a good return for your good advice." After saying this, he tied 60 knots in a thong, and summoning the Ionian sovereigns to an audience, said to them, "Gentlemen of Ionia, I take back the decision which I delivered before about the bridge. Now take this thong and do as follows. Begin to reckon from the day when you see me march away against the Scythians, and untie 1 knot each day. And if the days marked by the knots have all passed and I have not returned, embark for your own homes. But until then, since the plan is changed, guard the bridge, making every effort to keep and watch it. You will please me very much if you do this." Having said this, Darius hastened to march further. Thrace runs farther out into the sea than Scythia, and Scythia begins where a bay is formed in its coast, and the mouth of the Ister, facing southeast, is in that country. Now I am going to describe the coast of the true Scythia from the Ister and give its measurements. The ancient Scythian land begins at the Ister and faces south and the south wind, as far as the city called Carchinitis. Beyond this place, the country fronting the same sea is hilly and projects into the Pontus. It is inhabited by the Tauric nation as far as what is called the Rough Peninsula, and this ends in the Eastern Sea. For the sea to the south and the sea to the east are 2 of the 4 boundary lines of Scythia, just as seas are boundaries of Attica, and the Tauri inhabit a part of Scythia like Attica, as though some other people, not Attic, were to inhabit the heights of Sunium from Thoricus to the town of Anaphlystus. If Sunium